Hello everyone, I'm Santiago and today I'm gonna be testing the GTX 1050 Ti in 2024. So this card released in October 2016, so it's going to be 8 years old at the end of the year, which takes me back because I made so many videos on this card. I made 717 videos. So that's how much I used it. It survived Ethereum mining. It helped us in those times. And now it's time to try it in 2024 in new games. More than 20 games, so there's a lot of it. So let's get into it right away. We start with Call of Duty Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer, so 900p on quality. We use FSR 3 on quality. There's frame generation and it actually works on this one, which is good to see. But there is a lot more input lag, so I do not recommend you use it in this case. I mean, it feels better to play it without it. Again, there's so much input lag when I enable this. Yeah, you get a higher frame rate. But again, the input lag, you're at a disadvantage, trust me on this one. But I'm happy to see that at least it does work. Settings are basically low. Do not use frame generation, even with NVIDIA Reflex enabled, there's just too much latency. So let's get into the game. Alright, welcome to Modern Warfare 3 multiplayer. As you can see, I'm barely hitting 60. And by barely I mean some drops here and there, no big deal. And this being a place with a good amount of foliage, well, this is where I drop frames the most. Again, if you use frame generation, you'll be over 60 basically all the time. But I wouldn't recommend it because of the input lag. You're better off playing like this, like I'm playing right now, than using frame generation due to the input lag. Again, the input lag is so aggressive. That I recommend you just lower the resolution. Maybe dynamic resolution is a good idea actually. So let's do that. So dynamic resolution on. And we try to target 60, so we apply that. Now we got a dynamic resolution and we should be guaranteed 60s.
Friendly care package on the way.
So yeah, it works. And I will use the same settings on Warzone. Just because the dynamic resolution will still do its job. But the thing with it is that since Warzone is more demanding, bigger maps, more enemies, the dynamic resolution will be more aggressive, so it will drop the resolution lower than this. But the game looks just fine. Good looking game still. It looks like Call of Duty basically. Imagine my shock. Alright, the 1050 Ti can completely do it. Just make sure to play on 900p and it should be good to go. Warzone, and well, same settings as Modern Warfare 3, dynamic resolution. Even when falling and looking at the entire map, we're getting 60s, which is awesome. The game still looks pretty good. Alright, jumping out. Actual match now. I'm going to get killed very fast, but that's okay. That's kind of the point, I would say. Okay. So if you want to play Warzone, no problem. It'll be just fine. As you can see right now. Dynamic resolution, but still looks good, in my opinion. So if you're interested in this game, no problem, you can still play it, despite the age of the card. I'm guessing they did this on purpose, so more people are, well, more people are able to play. So yeah. Okay, I think there's somebody over there. Got him. Although there's somebody on my tail. And as you can see, I got 1 kill, which is a lot coming from me. And on a 1050 Ti, so ha! Got him. Let's jump into the next one. CS2, 1080p. I'm using a 144Hz display because all of you guys that are playing this are playing like this. So lowest settings. And let's see how it goes. And everything that I'm doing here is in the deathmatch mode, just because there's more going on. I don't want to bore you guys with the details while I'm just walking around. This should have more action and be more interesting to see. So smoke grenades are not here. But we have over 100 FPS very easily. So that's not an issue. Okay. So yeah, you're going to be fine with a 1050 Ti on this one, obviously. And if you're on the lowest settings, as you usually are, I read you guys in the comments, you're going to be fine. So yeah, I think that's good enough. So let's jump into the next game. This one was obviously going to work, but it's good to see that it can push over 100 FPS as long as your CPU is fast enough. So yeah, let's jump into the next one. HELLDIVERS 2, 900p for this one because the render scale option is not so good. So if you lower this, you'd rather lower the resolution instead of going for 1080p with render scale, specific to this game, so 900p. Basically we have a mix between medium and low. So let's get to it. For hell diving, I chose a higher difficulty than I play, just so there's more enemies. Okay, somebody joined me, wonderful, let's destroy those eggs. And I'll skip ahead to combat, because running is not as interesting. To destroy those eggs, oof. I'm playing on challenging instead of easy, and still not good enough for hell diving difficulty. Let's see the orbital strike in all its glory. For democracy! And it seems to be okay. Of course, it could get worse on higher difficulties with more enemies. And as you can see there, you can die very easily. So I forgot to dive. But I'm coming back. So while it's not a perfect test, it's better than playing on easy or normal. A good amount of enemies, people playing with me. As you guys in the comments requested it, so I appreciate that.
Calling down a support weapon.
And there's a good amount of foliage as well. That's why we drop in these difficult scenarios. Too much war on this one. But it's super enjoyable. Yeah, there seems to be some texture popping. It's gone, reduce 2 atoms. Let's go destroy those eggs. So yeah, while it's not perfect, it's completely playable even at 30 FPS. Again, there's stress points close to foliage with lots of enemies. but it's still a great experience nonetheless. Oh, Jesus.
Throwing grenade! My life for Super Earth!
So, enjoy your time. This is a great game, and it works on the 1050 Ti. If you want more stable performance, considering dropping to 720p, because the upscaler is not good, in my opinion at least. So let's continue. Dead Space Remake, 1080p, basically balanced FSR2 on a mix between medium and low. I'm being a bit conservative with the settings just because there's sections of the game where you'll drop into the 30s even with these settings, especially when there is multiple lights. This game has dynamic light sources, and those cast shadows and all that, so pretty demanding stuff. Okay, classic. But this game has a big issue since day one that is still there. That is the stuttering. No, nothing you can do to fix that, unfortunately. So yeah, we're stuck with the stuttering on PC. That's where it goes. When I was talking about the being conservative with settings, as you can see here, it likes to drop. Especially when you're using your flashlight, which is pretty often. And well, with the dynamic lights over there. A very specific scenario, doesn't happen all the time. But it's worth mentioning, at least in my opinion. Let's see, elevators. Okay, either one or the other, gotcha. Oops. So yeah, you can play this one just fine. Some minor drops below 30 in certain situations. Like here, because there is transparencies, the glass, plus the dynamic lighting, plus the flashlight. If I get away from that, it's okay. So again, it's completely fine, considering it's a 1050 Ti. Okay, somebody, of course, is what's going to happen. Cut off the limbs, guys. Okay. So let's jump into the next one. It's been fun. The finals, 1080p, performance FSR2. Remember that this is an Unreal Engine 5 game. Actually, let's use TAAU. In this game, at least in my opinion, looks better. And there you go. A mix of medium and low. Maybe 70%? No, 65%. So TAAU 65%, 1080p. Let's go. And since this is a competitive game, I'm targeting 60s on this card. That's why the resolution drop has to be so drastic. Again, Unreal Engine 5. It's probably going to drop when destruction happens. Reminds you of the days of Battlefield 4. But the worst, it seems to drop into the mid-50s when there's destruction happening around you. So yeah, so far so good. Let's open this wall. No? Not happening? Okay. Fine. Oh, no ammo. I wish I had a secondary. So as you can see, it works pretty well. So let's jump into it. Hogwarts Legacy next, and this one doesn't have full screen, so 1080p FSR2 quality, that means 720p internal. You can change the sharpness if you want to. Everything else like this. This I might increase it to plus 1.6. And basically the medium preset to make it easier for you guys to compare. So now into the game, we're inside Hogwarts. Let's go outside. The game still stutters despite the many updates. It's a little bit better in that front. But we're going to do some demanding stuff, such as going outside. Very demanding, as you can see, just like in real life. Touching grass is not easy. And we can fly. That's perfect. I chose FSR2, but you can choose XESS if you want to. In my opinion, it looks a little bit better, but has a bit more ghosting. So instead of having lots of shimmering, like on FSR2, when you move the camera like this, it will be a little bit more stable, but had a bit more ghosting. So it's either shimmering or ghosting. All up to you there. We're now in the Forbidden Forest. I like going to places with lots of foliage. And this one is perfect for that. Let's fly out of there.
Could it be?
Oof. I forgot how to block. Stupefy. Let's do a curse. Abadacadabra. Reduce 2 atoms. But as you can see, it's completely fine as long as you don't mind the quality FSR/XESS. You can combat, you can fly. And you can do lots of dark magic if you want to. And you can also fly. So this one is fine. Let's jump into the next one. Palworld, 1080p, Unreal Engine 5, TSR enabled, medium to low settings. Effects are low, so we miss reflections, but that's okay. And that's basically it. So here we are, 30 FPS. I'm not targeting 60s because obviously, how to say this? The game will look much worse, first of all, and second of all, well, it won't be stable 60s anyway, so. The game still looks similar to higher settings, so medium is good enough, in my opinion at least. So you get a an okay draw distance, and it still looks like Palworld. You just don't have reflections on water, basically. So yeah, it does work. And it helps that it doesn't have nanite or lumen, which are some of the most demanding features. Even looking into the distance appears to be okay. Hopefully I don't die by dropping. And fall damage is just a suggestion in this game. So yeah. I mean, if you have a big base or... Yeah, big base, I'm talking like 3 floors and in the middle of the forest. Well, maybe it will drop into the upper 20s. In that case, drop it to 900p. But so far so good. So yeah, it works on the 1050 Ti. Hopefully we get an FSR patch or something officially soon enough. So yeah, there we go. Let's jump into the next one. The Last of Us Part 1, one of the worst PC ports in recent memory, 720p, FSR2 quality, which give us 480p. And that's basically it. I forgot also to show you the settings. The settings is basically the auto preset, which is low. So I'm not showing you every setting. It's basically low settings. Not very low, low.
I've never seen anything like this.
And I needed that to achieve 30 FPS consistently. And what to say, textures are horrible. Shadows are blurry, the game itself is very blurry.
She was up to the task.
But if I don't do this,
On us.
in many areas it's going to drop below 30. Especially when infected are involved. Alright, so now in combat.
Right, I would have done.
They're all dead. Right here.
And this is an area where I had lots of drops in performance, especially CPU related, but we're good on the CPU side. We're talking about GPU in this video. As you can see, indoors, it can be okay when looking at the edge of the map, but once you're looking into the important part of the map, well, you're going to have drops in performance. Whoops. Just very variable. My advice is to lock it to 30 FPS, because otherwise mouse control is horrible. It feels inconsistent. I move the mouse slowly and then it starts moving very fast. And that's because, well, we jump from 30 to 50 or 60. So yeah. That's The Last of Us Part 1, and I'm going to catch on fire now, for your amusement. Oh my god, the mouse control. So let's jump into the next one. Like a Dragon Gaiden, the man who raised his name, 1080p. On the settings, we are basically like this. Then there's many upscaling options. We're using FSR3 quality and frame generation. As soon as I enable it, the game crashes. Same thing happened to me with a 1650, so not sure what's going on with that. But this is not a game where I would say 60s is absolutely necessary, and it still looks pretty good, so yeah, should run similar to like Dragon Infinite Wealth. So let's fight them. But FSR3 looks pretty good. I'm always pretty impressed when it comes to this game's upscaling. And even with effects on screen, it's completely fine. Just don't play on native because it'll drop below 30. The other option if you want 60s is to lower the resolution to 900p maybe. That should get you closer with the same settings. But still, I think this is good enough. Visually it's okay. It's 40 to 50 something FPS. And that spider thing is hilarious. Alright, let's jump into the next one. This one is completely fine. Spiderman Miles Morales, 1080p, FSR 2.1 quality. There's other methods of upscaling. I would say FSR 2.1 is not amazing, but there's also XeSS and IGTI. For now FSR 2.1, but you can use this one if you want to. It still looks pretty good. On the graphics, we're usually on a mix between medium and low, as you can see here. So let's get into it. And with 1080p plus that quality upscaling, we're getting over 40s pretty often, so we're pretty good. The thing is, when you're moving around and all that, if you want 60 FPS, when effect-heavy moments happen, you're going to drop, basically.
Maybe go to Jersey. Sorry, Jersey. I didn't mean it. Love you.
That's why I'm not targeting 60. You need to drop the resolution quite a bit to reach that number. Because when effects happen, the GPU is going to suffer quite a bit. So trust me on that one. But the game is completely playable and looks pretty good. So the textures will suffer as a result of the 4 GB of VRAM, but otherwise it's a great experience. So if you have the chance to play this game, the 1050 Ti can still do it. And again, the visuals hold up fantastically well on this card. So yeah, it's been a while since I played this. but I enjoy every second of it. Mortal Kombat 1, 1080p, temporal upscaling at 50%, which will be like FSR2 on performance, so yeah, 540p. And then on the settings is basically low, without any reflections of any sort. So I'm going to run the benchmark and see what happens. This is an automated thing that is going to play a very short match to see if we can hit 60s by being a demanding stage. And well, as you guys always tell me, in a fighting game you want 60s all the time. Well, this is the way to do it. It's very soft looking, but it gets the job done. 6 FPS, we have some GPU power to spare, but it jumps into 90% in demanding parts. Well, that's basically it. That's how you play Mortal Kombat 1 on this card at 6 FPS, and you should be able to do online play as well, because you need to go through this benchmark to play online. So average 6 FPS. So let's jump into the next one. Ratchet and Clank Rift Apart, 1080p, beta reflex on. XeSS in this game I think is the upscaler that looks the best, with a dynamic resolution targeting 30, so it automatically changed the resolution to hit this target. And on graphics we're using basically a mix between medium and low. So let's get into it. The famous portal scene. But as you can see, when it gets complex, we'll try to compensate. In this part we're not actually playing, so it's okay. But overall, it's been fine like this, on targeting 30 FPS with a dynamic resolution. Again, there are sections, like the very beginning of the game, where it can drop from the first 2-3 minutes because of memory bandwidth. But again, generally, with these settings, I've been having a good experience so far. Textures are not amazing, but we only have 4 gigs of VRAM. So yeah, great looking game, and it works well on the 1050 Ti. I'll call it a visual spectacle. At the start of the game, after the portals, we got this, and again the game will target 30, so it will be a variable resolution, but it stays at 30 99% of the time for me. And it still looks pretty good. If you like better looking cutscenes, maybe increase the hair quality. But again, the game looks great, dynamic resolution works well, which is nice to see on a PC game. And the 1050 Ti, as you can see, can handle it at 30 FPS with decent visuals. Ready or Not, a very popular game right now. 900p, advanced graphics, low textures because 4 gigs of VRAM, everything on medium, view distance on high to cover some of that pop in here and there. Per object shadows disabled for performance reasons, and FSR2 on quality, so 900p, and I'm targeting 6 FPS.
I'm with you.
And as you can see, the shadows look weird. Well, that's because they are unfiltered. So for this to improve, you need the shadows on high, but that has a major performance impact. So if you don't mind drops below 60, put shadows on high. But it's going to drop quite a bit, so this is one of the few levels where this is very obvious. But this is what happens with unfiltered shadows. And I'm targeting 60 because this game requires reflexes and attention, which most of the time I do not have while playing this. But hey, it works on the 1050 Ti with the base resolution of 900p. I'm not kicking the door. Any bombs? Yes. Yeah, there's a bomb in there. Oh my god. Okay, let me skip ahead to some gunfights. Okay, wish me luck now. Bomb? No bomb. Okay, perfect. Ooh! And we're getting shot at now. Open, clear with flashbang. I still alive?
Got him. Suspect down. Element to talk.
Okay, I'm completely stunned.
This is talk. Roger that. Medical
That was intense.
Hey, Megan.
zipped up and good to
Evidence,
go.
good to go.
Got him. Evidence good to go. Making it safe.
Alright. So as you can see,
Ready to
it
go.
works just fine. I chose this level, I cherry picked this level actually. Because there is foliage outside. It's very complex when it comes to geometry. Ah, and there's a bomb right under my feet.
Securing the device.
So this game runs just fine. You might have drops below 60 in certain situations, unfortunately. But overall, as long as you choose DX11 and don't go crazy with textures going above low, and you don't mind these unfiltered shadows, it should be good. And you can target 60 FPS. Just make sure to use FSR on this one. It's pretty important. Explosives.
Hands on your head, do it now! Police, get your hands up!
Okay.
Hands up, down on your knees! Down on your knees!
Okay, nobody down here. So yeah, let's jump into the next one. Resident Evil 4 Remake, the Separate Ways DLC, which, I mean, runs the same, but I'd like to show you something intensive. So 720p, quality FSR2, and I'm using basically low settings. The only thing that I cranked up was the destruction of the environment. That's usually not a big performance hit. So why 720p? Because in this game, at least on the consoles, it's 6 FPS. And I don't feel like playing this at 30 unless I'm on a Steam Deck. And this area is the one where I drop frames the most, at least for the time I've been playing this game. So yeah, when I'm close to this bonfire thing, or when you use the scope in the rifle, when you use the scope in the rifle, it's a huge performance impact. So what's my advice on this one? Well, first of all, instead of using what's available in the options menu, download RE Framework. That's for mods. And use the, in the RE Framework Upscaler, which I will leave in the description, use FSR2 or XeSS. That will disable the blurry TAA in the game, and it will look much better. And performance will be the same will be an improvement while using a scope, because you can lower the resolution of the scope with that mod. So yeah, that's RE4 Remake Separate Ways, works fantastically well. That's why I did 720p. If you want to do 1080p or 900p, you'll get 40 to 50 FPS. 60 is pretty difficult, at least on this card. But one of the best games last year. Looks pretty good even at 720p, which is saying something. And it's completely worth playing. So it works just fine on the 1050 Ti. Let's jump into the next one. Robocop Rogue City. This one, Unreal Engine 5, very demanding. They, a couple days ago, added FSR 3, which is pretty impressive. And you'll see some frame generation options, which we're going to check out. Basically low settings. We can now turn off Lumen and use Lumen for reflections and use screen space reflections instead, which is a benefit for us. So the frame rate when we are here outside is basically 30 FPS with stutters. So if we enable frame generation, we get horrible frame times. And it says 60, but really this feels worse than 30. I would say. So my advice is to turn this off, personally. Because otherwise, it's horrible. I don't know how to explain it. It doesn't feel right. You can feel the latency quite a bit.
Robo, can you help me out here?
No.
Man, pig.
Okay, so no combat. Because combat is a huge part of this game. And it's usually pretty demanding.
Just look at
Surrender your weapons.
And there's a lot of destruction. I was pretty surprised about that. So when there's a lot of enemies and there's destruction, the GPU is going to suffer. But the game still works fine. It's just the resolution is very low. The shadow quality is very low as well. But hey, it works. It's UE5. And it's a game I don't think you should miss. But maybe on a better card if possible. But it works on the 1050 Ti with all those downgrades, to say it in some way. Anyway, let's jump into the next one. Star Wars CPU Survivor. So we're using a mix between medium and low, basically on 900p with quality FSR2. Maybe balance would be a good idea, but let's start with quality. And we're on, again, 900p.
The Jedi!
And while this game received lots of patches,
coming jet.
especially on the CPU side, it's a lot better. And when it comes to GPU, it's not that much difference. So as you can see, we're very close to the limit of 30 FPS. So my advice would be to use balanced FSR. So let's do that. FSR balanced. There's FSR 3, but it's not supported according to the game, so keep that in mind. Yeah, with balanced FSR, we're much closer to our target 30. So yeah, this GPU can do it. It's just a thing of are you willing to play it like this? I mean, yeah, why not? The game still looks okay. And it's a 1050 Ti, I mean, come on. So yeah. Let's skip the cutscene.
We gotta get to that yacht.
That was a close one, buddy.
So yeah. I think it's time to jump into the next one. This one works, but hopefully in the future it gets better because they're working on a PS4 version, believe it or not, so that might give us improvements for the PC version in the future. Who knows? Street Fighter 6, 900p, 3 on the internal resolution, which is not native, but it still looks pretty good. These are the settings. And on detail settings, we got it like this. So we're targeting 60 in World Tour and in normal fights as well. So let's get into it. So always told me that fighting games need to be a solid 60, and as you can see, this one is no exception. 6 FPS just fine, especially in one-on-one battles such as this one. Yeah, we take a hit to textures and all that, but it's usually the World Tour that is the major issue. World Tour with the bigger maps and all that is what makes the performance suffer. That's why in the consoles like the Series S, the PS4, the fights in the World Tour are locked to 30 FPS, believe it or not. So here we're targeting 60. In normal fights, it's okay, as you can see. Now in the World Tour, maps are bigger, all that, and that's not a big issue until you start fighting random people on the streets. Because the background is still this open location. So the GPU usage, as you can see, is much higher. We're hitting the upper 50s instead of the 60s. But I think this is better than locking it to 30 as it's suggested in the options menu. So not perfect, but it's a 1050 Ti. I mean, what else did you want? Suicide Squad killed the Justice League, the best game this year so far. Medium settings with low fog, 1080p, and basically no upscaling or anything. It's just raw 1080p. So yeah, let's get into it. And it runs surprisingly well. I was expecting way worse from this one. Although maybe some upscaling, yeah, we're very borderline 30. Let's use some upscaling. I changed my mind. FSR quality. There we go. That's much better. So now with FSR quality, we can actually maintain 30s no matter what. Alright, so now with FSR, it's completely fine. We can hit 30s basically all the time. So this is one of the few things that this game does properly, which is performance, at least on this card. If you're interested in playing this fantastic game, go for it. It works pretty well. Better than I anticipated, honestly. Where are the incubators?
But everything else is fair game. The Terminaut incubators are hooked up to a network of some kind of power sources. Shoot the hell out of them.
Yeah, even with combat involved, it's okay. BRAM is in check.
Speaking of promotions, I'll be monitoring
Oh
your
yeah.
performance. Whoever screws up the least.
If you're interested in the game, it works on the 1050 Ti on 1080p with FSR quality, which I think is pretty impressive for the 1050 Ti. Alan Wake 2 on the absolute lowest settings, 720p, performance FSR 2, which is 360p. As you can see, absolute lowest settings. And well, this is with the new update that just dropped that increases performance in 10 series cards. And well, the 1050 Ti is still not good enough, but the performance improvement is there. We have 18 FPS, which is, well, probably for you nothing. It was like 5 FPS, so we got a 10 FPS improvement over here. So the forest is the most demanding area. That's why I'm showing you this. So yeah, there's also city locations with Alan Wake, and I'm going to show you that right now. But as you can see, when you're in the forest, good luck. We're now Alan Wake, and as you can see, it's much better. This area is not as complex as the forest.
It was all about
Now
me.
we get to the city.
This performance the Dark Place was putting on.
And as you can see, it can reach 30 FPS now. It used to be hard locked 10 FPS, so it's a huge improvement. But again, still not going to be consistent 30s anytime soon, unfortunately. So yeah, the update did improve things quite significantly. But for this card, still not good enough. As you can see, when I get to a slightly more complex place, it drops again. So is it an improvement? Yeah. Is it enough? Not really. So let's jump into the next one. Skull and Bones, a quadruple A game on the 1050 Ti, 1080p, FSR 2 quality, medium shadows, and the rest basically on low, and ambient occlusion enabled. So let's get into it. In the town, we're okay. And this is what I drop performance the most, honestly, while being the least interesting part. So let's get into the ship and set sail. Alright, we're now into the game in the ship. As you can see, the ship runs better overall. And now I'm doing combat, and well, what to say? It's as quadruple A as it gets. and it runs well on the 1050 Ti.
Watch out! Get down!
So if you're interested, yeah, the game works, 1080p, quality FSR, and even in the towns you're going to get over 30 FPS. And I died. Let's jump into the next one. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, 720p, FSR 3, doesn't allow us for frame generation. Performance FSR 3. On graphics, it's basically lowest settings, as you can see. So let's get back into the game. And this game is very demanding because there's always some ray tracing going on, whether we like it or not. So very demanding next-gen title. But if you lower the settings enough, like I showed you, you can actually play it. Of course, the graphical fidelity is pared back. There's frame rate drops when you move the camera very quickly. But it works. If it works for you, well, the 1050 Ti can do it. Just not in an ideal manner. Let's leave it at that. But hey, I thought it was going to be sub 20 FPS, honestly. Especially when looking into the distance, the game has difficulties. But still, I wouldn't play it like this. It's a great looking game, but with these settings, yeah. I would say it's skip it until you upgrade your GPU type of game. So let's jump into the next one, literally. Cyberpunk 2077, 1080p, graphics, FSR 2.1, quality. You can play with the sharpness if you want, crowd density on low, textures on low, and then the optimized settings from Digital Foundry with some minor adjustments. So why this game? Well, apart from being a great looking game, there was a huge update, the 2.1 update. But the new DLC is pretty demanding on the CPU and GPU, which is Dogtown, the Phantom Liberty DLC. And this Dogtown section is more demanding, more NPCs, more stuff going on, more geometry. So let's see how it goes, shall we? Okay, here we are. Whoa. And we drop into the below 30 actually. So it's definitely more demanding than the base game, was my advice. FSR balanced. And should be closer to 30. But man, this area is so demanding in comparison, it's ridiculous. And despite the crowd density being on low, there's a lot of characters around. So yeah, you can play it, but it'll drop below 30 a bit more often, plus you need to lower FSR 2.1 to balanced. On 1080p, if you go for 900p, you won't drop below 30 at all with these settings. So yeah. So that's it for this video, 1050 Ti, quite a few years later. So it's impressive after 8 years that you can still play new games. Of course, Alan Wake 2 with the with the new update still suffers to reach 30s. Many Unreal Engine 5 games require 720p with upscaling. So yeah, those games technically work, but the visuals are pared back significantly. So if you got this card from all the way back from 2016, well, you're maybe due for an upgrade, if it's possible. The early 20 series RTX cards should be pretty cheap. But still, I'm pretty impressed that a card of this age still launches and plays, quote-unquote, many of the newest games. That was usually unheard of on PC a few years before this card came out. I mean, imagine 8 years after the GTX 550 Ti released, expecting games to work. So yeah, we got lucky with this one, I think. So that's basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. For more 1050 Ti, please follow the link in the description. I have hundreds of videos on it, so have fun. See you next time. Thanks for watching.